So, can everybody hear at the moment? Sorry about back of my head. Can everybody hear? Someone let me know if they can hear us, please.
It's fine. It's wonderful.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. So Chokyi will be here in a moment. So I'll just mute it again and just turn off the video while she just gets herself in the chair, okay?
Thank you so much.
Every actions I've done in my body, speech, and mind, flow without attachment, anger, and confusion. All those I lay bare before you. Lift out the heart and rejoice in all positive potentials. Those who meditate those in 10 directions. It is here still training and those beyond, and of all ordinary beings. You who are the bright lights of Buddha 10 directions, attain the of awakening. All these who are in my abode. And together I earnestly request you who may actualize Parinirvana, please stay beyond the patterns of the world in this wondrous samsara. Whatever slight positive potential I may have created in homage and requesting and reaching the pulse, requesting that the Buddhas stay and teach. I now create all this for full awakening. You Buddhists now bring in the worlds in 10 directions, and all of you gone to past set my offerings. Tuition, with regards. Rachel's not here. Was she leaving early? So keep going. Visions be entirely pure and vast. Be filled with bodhisattvas, surrounding Buddhas, gathered beneath the tree. It's in the 10 directions, and you're always well and happy. Beings with Dharma, every Dharma wish be fulfilled. Being thy father's words in all varieties of existence. Practice the Bodhisattva way. You must put it on whenever you're ready. Audio. Following in the process of the world Buddhas. Spirit and Mars, difficult discipline, faultless and pure. A teacher Dharma in the language of gods, every language of spirits and others, humans and the voice of every being. To reminded of 6 parameters, which will in future be placed without emission, every balancing, and all that includes an awakening mind, interfering forces. The righteous bottom is undisturbed, would sway, the sun and moon move unhindered through the sky. The suffering of all realms. In samsara, the real bliss of awakening. The world will benefit to them as well. I practice on to leave by the answer term, giving the activities of the body, return dispositions, beings, in the ways of a body suffer. Always have brains with like mind. The body works and also mind, practicing together, iterations and activities. Always short mental friends.
May I always directly seek the Buddhas, masters in search by bodhisattvas, without taking calls or discouragement for eons to come. May I make extensive offerings to them. May I hold within me the Buddha's
genuine Dharma, embodiment everywhere, teachings that awaken, beware, teachings that awaken.
Embody the realizations of a bodhisattva and practice ardently in all future eons. While circling through all states of existence, may I become an endless treasure of good qualities, skillful means, wisdom, samadhi, and liberating stabilization. Gathering limitless pristine wisdom and positive potential. On one atom I shall see Buddha fields numberless as atoms, inconceivable Buddhas among bodhisattvas.
Suffers and originated, seeing the activities of awakening, seeing this in all directions, a trained in the notion of Buddha fields, so the notion of 3 times from the head. One practice with mention of eons.
Thus I am continually immersed in the speech of Buddhas, that reveals an
Notion bodies and one word. Completing pure evidence of all the Buddhas. Various tendencies of beings. Depends understanding and plunge into a new
of all the Buddhas in 3 times on freedom, which is termed the wheel of Dharma methods. I shall experience in one moment such vast activity of all future beings. I will enter into all eons of the 3 times in that
fraction of a second.
In one
The instant I shall see those believing beings.
past, present, and
Future lines among humans. Power of realization of civilization. Company painting and visible activities. Test upon a single atom. Way of field lengths, present, past, and future.
Likewise, I shall enter the array of pure Buddhas
The fields
in
every direction.
without exception. I shall enter the very presence of my guides, those lights of this world who are yet to appear, those sequentially turning the wheels of complete awakening, those who reveal the
final perfect peace. The chief badge will speak magical emanation, power to bridge to fate vehicle every approach. Power of love pervading all realms. The power of all surpassing positive potential. The power of supreme realms. Through an ocean of beings. I clear see an ocean of Dharma, an ocean of both saying wisdom. Purify an ocean of virtues, an ocean of aspirations. Buddhas, I practice the low disparagement of the ocean of eons. Green for the purest by the suffer way.
I shall fulfill without exception all the diverse aspirations of the awakening practice.
All Buddhas gone to freedom in the 3 times everywhere. What it takes is Samantabhadra, all-embracing good.
The elder brother of the sons and daughters of the Buddhas, I completely dedicate all this goodness. Likewise, may I dedicate just as a skillful
Samantabhadra,
with pure body, speech and mind, pure actions and pure Buddha feels. I shall give rise to the aspirations of Manjushri, for this bodhisattva practice of all-embracing good, to perfect these practices without discouragement or pause in all future eons. May my pure activities be endless, my good qualities boundless, and through abiding in immeasurable activity, may I actualize infinite emanations. Limitless is the end of this ego state, likewise limitless are within things. Thus limitless are karma and afflictions.
may my aspirations reach be limitless as well. One may the Buddhas and growth in significant worlds in 10 directions. May offer during eons numbers of greatest of ordinary humans. Whoever needs to bring me aspiration and given me far awakening, for us to face just once, but far more positive potential. With aspiration to Bodhisattva way, freedom from non-dreamers, harmful passion, quickly see in the Dharma, even in the very life. That's why I have been listening to visions in different senses. Without waiting long, they would come with Samantabhadras. This was an extraordinary aspiration. Right, permanent. Demand empowered with dreams. Money, knowledge, and body and attributes and things. Freeing forces, feeding teachers. Someone make offerings. Going quickly to burn the Bodhi tree. Bringing to mirror the forces. Fully awakened and truly awake wheel of Dharma. No doubt the free awakening, the ripened result, comprehended only by a Buddha, holding in them and inspiration, Bodhisattva practice. Buddha trained just like the hero Manjushri who knows reality and just like Samantabhadra as well. I fully dedicate all these did. The dedication which is praised as greatest, all than who has gone beyond in 3 times. To dedicate remembrance of forgiveness through attainment of Bodhisattva practice. When my death arrives, meeting all obscurations, perceiving Amitabha, may go immediately to Sukhavati, pure land of great joy. Gone to Sukhavati, to rise in meaning of celebration. Exception for the benefit of beings for as long as the world endures. From the extremities of superlative lotus, beautiful land, Buddha's magnificent Nara, restores and awakening directly from the Buddha and Amitabha. Received a prediction there, and had prayed most of its readings, directions, nations were power of wisdom. Within small which I have created, my rings of some practice. All those affections. To Bhadra's deeds. All these again into the presence of Amitabha. Of aspirations, which is the greatest of the sublime, helping infinite wanderers in samsara through the accomplishment of his scripture dazzling with Amitabha's practice. May suffering realms be utterly emptied of all beings. So those who have joined us online, we're saying we just offered the King of Prayers for Gareth Brybag. It's a student in at Mahayana Institute who was visiting me many times, was a student of Geshe Tenzin Zopa and Geshe Samten, who since he was 15, and I think he was probably 25, he passed away suddenly on Friday. I just got a message from his mother at lunchtime. He was about to go back and see Geshe Samten about ordaining again. I mean, not about ordaining again, to again put that request. Geshe had said previously that he is he's had very pure heart, pure bodhicitta. So he had a vision for, I think it was a compassionate care hospital. That's what maybe we can make that vision happen one time. Anyway, so I just talked to him on Thursday. He called me and it was everything, you know, as we say, death comes any time. And of course, he was very nervous to see Geshe because he held him in such high regard as his teacher. Venerable Chokyi's been, and Venerable Rabdrol in Sydney have been visiting, he's been visiting there quite regularly. But before that, he was visiting me every Friday. He'd come to the centre and we'd have a Dharma little talk. And anyway, quite shocking. Even though we know that death comes any time, it's always quite shocking when you're not expecting it. Somebody else's death, of course, it's quite shocking when we're not expecting it too. So I was just looking while reciting that prayer. I know I looked a bit distracted. I was saying the prayer to the best of my ability, but Gareth, a few years ago, read this poem to me, and I don't know if I've got all of it here on my phone because he actually lost the book afterwards. So I'll have to see if I can find it all. And the poem, as soon as I read it, I was like, this is Shantideva. He'd never heard of Shantideva. So if you wouldn't mind me, I'll read. May all the deaf hear, may all the blind see, may all those in mental, I guess goosebumps straight away. May all those in mental and physical prison be set free. May all the hungry people be eternally full. May all the sad be happy. May all the dead reach high rebirth. May all the poor become rich, full of love and happiness. May all the sick be cured. May all the ignorant see clearly. May all the darkness be overcome with pure light. May all beings find peace, joy, and happiness. May all beings in danger become safe. May all those in darkness find the light. May all those who feel cold find warmth. May all those who are lost find their way. May all the world, the weak, find strength. May all the wise become wiser. May, there's one I can't read. May all the liars find the truth. May all the world's positive prayers become answered. May all your wishes come true. May all the weapons be destroyed. May all the uneducated become educated. May all the haters find love. May all the hopeless find hope. May all find their talents. May all violence and evil cease to exist. May all orphans find families. May all broken hearts be healed. May all the greedy turn to giving. May all the mentally ill become mentally free. May all the disabled find their abilities. May all the addicted become non-addicted. So I think it's only an excerpt. He wrote that and he had never heard of Shantideva. It's goosebumps, right? So it's such a pure being. I was looking for his photo too. Maybe those who are here, you won't see it on YouTube, but this is, he lost that book of his poetry, which was very unfortunate. There's his photo. I think it was 25. Anyway, I can get that printed. I'm not sure if people will see. So I would like to also recite some Om Mani Padme Hum, because we all know that mantra. Holding Gareth, or holding him in our hearts. I'm particularly holding in mine. That his mother said when he passed away. I said, "Oh well, I hope he's mine." I said, "How was his mind?" She said, "She thinks he was peaceful." It may be that he was peaceful, but, you know, I don't think having a heart attack is a very peaceful way to go. So some medical thing that happened, and he had a heart attack, so they're doing autopsy. Anyway, so that may he be free. Well, he is now, hopefully, free of this terribly racked body he had. So you can pass around. He had a lot of health issues, lots and lots. Anyway, you can't tell there. He looks quite gorgeous, as he was. Pure heart, pure heart. All his family agree, you know. He looked after everybody. He saved people's lives. He was so intuitively connected with his family. And he literally saved their lives, a few of them, when they were suicidal. Unbelievable. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. Thank you. So anyway, I've left messages for Geshe Zopa and Geshe Samton, and he lived in Mount Druitt in Sydney. If anyone knows Mount Druitt, he was the only house that had prayer flags. It was that sort of place, and he had Buddhas everywhere. It was just, I mean, Western Sydney is not known for its sort of, anyway, it was quite remarkable because he'd send me photos and say, what's this Buddha? And I say, where'd you get it? I found it in the op shop. The Buddhas found him. Yeah, everywhere in his house. Okay. All right, folks, thank you very much. And so, in relation to what we've been discussing, were there any questions arising over the lunchtime or previously, or anything arising? Apart from the fact, am I going to get through it all? No.
Hi, Venerable Chokyi, Sarah here.
Sarah, hi. Oh, sorry, got to look that way.
I just wanted to ask, what's the difference between initiation and
Yes.
empowerment?
Well, generally, as you said, you take an initiation, you know, which initiations are the things that give you permission, isn't it? Give you permission to do the practice. But the word empowerment is much more probably accurate in terms of what actually happens in that process. So in an initiation, the Lama goes through a whole series of initiations. We go through different initiations, and then, I mean, depending on the complexity of the Tantra that we're talking about. But basically, it gives you subsequent permission to be able to engage in that practice. And if it's highest yoga Tantra, arising as the deity and so forth. So we, just a sec, I'm just looking for a verse in the Guru Puja. So, for example, at the moment, the Vajrayogini group that has, once you've done a highest yoga Tantra empowerment and you've also done the retreat, received the commentary for that, which you can't have until you've done all of that, until you've done those things, then you're able, you don't need the Lama to initiate you every time. You're able to self-initiate. And they say that that's the most powerful purification practice. So at the moment we have downstairs the Vajrayogini's self-initiation day, sometimes called self-entry, because what happens in that empowerment is that the Vajra Master introduces you to the mandala, and on the basis of the mandala, like you stand there at the gate of the mandala, so to speak, and introduces you to the mandala through a series of explanations, guidance, and so forth. And so then you have permission to enter the mandala, and this mandala then is your abode as the arising as the deity. So, so these different terminologies are used, but I quite like, and indeed, John Lando, the word empowerment is much more probably accurate in terms of what happens in that practice. But as I said, it's a very powerful purification practice. So we were talking before lunch about the Samaya Vajra practice and when we've broken vows and commitments and so forth. So it's also said the commitments that we have, say you have a highest yoga Tantra empowerment and you've broken commitments, that doing the self-initiation restores those if you have permission to do that. So one level is the permission, the empowerment. Another level is that you then do what we say the approximation retreat or nearing retreat, 100,000, usually 100,000, unless you're told to do more, mantras and the whole practice using the long sadhana. So as a daily practice, it might be a short one, short practice, but then a long one if you're in retreat, generally, or it can be a long one mixed up with a short one, but at least once a day, if not more, you have to do the long one. Anyway, that allows you to do all the meditations that go along with it. The long ones are always better for doing all the meditations and familiarizing. So if you're doing retreats, best. And then you can have, commentary on that. And so then we also have the Great Retreat. I know you didn't ask all these questions, but you're getting this. So the Great Retreat is the sort of 3-year deity retreat. So obviously in a great retreat, you have more time to familiarize more with the practice. So basically, but one has to have a very stable mind. One has to have a basis of retreat and all the prerequisites for retreat, which we can revisit again in December. So let me go back, and the verse I'm thinking of, see if I can find it reasonably quickly. Reasonably quickly. Approximation or nearing retreat. It has both of those, because approximation or nearing, getting closer to the deity, because when you have an initiation, it can also be called an empowerment. The two words can be used interchangeably like that. They might be advertised as an empowerment or initiation. And when you have that, as I was saying before, particularly the first time, you have generally no idea what's going on. It's the first time. And
somebody comes around and hands out all these things and bonks you on the head with something and says, drink this and whatever, do that, and you're like, okay. And it can't be like, especially highest yoga tantra. The last time Rinpoche was here, Rinpoche bestowed high agriva, and most secret high agriva. And it could be recorded, but it had to be deleted straight away. I wasn't ever sure why it was recorded in the first place, because it wasn't like couldn't even be secretly kept. I'm not sure, but it's like, and I remember being at a previous empowerment in Bendigo with Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and we were all told, you know, no filming, no whatever. And somebody was, well, I would like to say secretly, but they didn't make a secret of it, and so they were wrapped over the knuckles, to say the least. So they had to delete it from their device. So, and of course, it's not necessarily that they wanted to post it online. It was probably they wanted it for their own reference for practice. So this is where, and once having taken an empowerment of a particular deity, it's absolutely any chance that you have to do it again and again and again and again and again and again and again, do every single time, you know, absolutely. Particularly if you've been told that's your personal practice, you do as many times as you can, because you're restoring the purity of that and the blessings of the Vajra Master, the Lama. That applies for refuge, for bodhicitta. We say renewing the vows. I mean, we recite the bodhisattva vows every day. You know, have commitment for that, if you have a commitment for that. And it says to purify any mistakes, to strengthen those vows not broken, right, and to restore those that have been broken. And just in, you know, we don't have to think what those were. It's just like, well, just in case, you know, cover your bases. Okay, so I can't find this quickly, so. Okay. Rinpoche has given me a choice of 2 different highest yoga tantra deities, so much around Tantra Jade's secrets, so I found it challenging to find information on these deities. How do you know which deity, excuse me, to choose when you decide to take? Well, I'm not sure if you've, the answer is that you've taken one of those yet or not, but my advice to you, excuse me, would be to talk to Geshe Tarchin. That's my advice to you in New Zealand, because you're doing teachings with Geshe Tarchin, right? Or Geshe Wangchen, but Geshe Tarchin's, you said, close to you, correct? So that would be my advice, because it can be, you have an idea. I remember talking to Lama Zopa Rinpoche one time, and because of, I felt a particular connection with a deity, and I started talking to Rinpoche about it. He didn't even talk about it at all, like change the topic, you know. And subsequently, I was advised what to take as my personal deity practice. And it wasn't the one I had been thinking about. And I hear other people say the same thing. So we can think, oh, I really connect with A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And you're told this is your, and this is the faith in the guru, because they're giving you the best advice for you right now at where your mind is, blah, 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 all the causes and conditions coming together. Yeah, Geshe Tarchin. So check in with Geshe-la and see what advice Geshe-la gives you. I mean, he might say, go back to Rinpoche with these questions, or he might give you advice from his side. Because a lama's, you know, they're not going to contradict another lama. If you say, oh, this one told me this, what do you reckon? Do not ever ask her that question, right? That's a definite no. Okay, what other questions? If any. If not, we've got a bit of material to get through, so there's no problem with that, just in case you have. Just saying.
Can I ask another question?
Of course you can, sorry.
I just wanted to clarify when you mentioned that when we have talking about the subtle level of mind.
Yes.
So you say that because Tantra happens in the subtle level of mind, and one of the experiences is in the death, the moment of death. That
Yes.
means that that's the best moments to plant like the seeds for Tantra. Like I just wanted to clarify that what
Not
you
necessarily
meant.
to plant the seeds for Tantra. We want the seeds for Tantra right now. I would suggest
Okay.
that you would have the seeds of Tantra right now, but whether you've taken an empowerment's another story. But we're planting seeds right now for Tantra just by reflecting on this, discussing it. I mean, you've encountered Tibetan Buddhism, you're going to encounter Tantra, right? Whether you actually engage in a tantric practice or not, you get advice from your Lama.
So what does it mean when you mention about that in the moment of death, when you say that?
Okay, well, that's our next topic coming along.
Okay.
So you're right on cue.
All right, yeah, because you say like the bodhisattvas wanted to run to the moment of death. So
yes.
Yeah.
If you have control over that moment of death,
Okay.
or which means you've got control over all the gross levels. I mean, most of us, you have the earth dissolution, you have the water dissolution. By then, you're out for the count, right?
Yeah.
So, but if you can keep the light on. And we can practice that without a tantric empowerment. That's what we're going to do as our next, I'll just go through.
Okay.
Okay, so anything else? Otherwise, we'll continue on. Are we up to session 4 yet? Oh, if I say so, we're up to session 4. I see, that's how it works. Of course it is. Okay. Well, we'll do that. Gesundheit. So, you can see we're just skimming the surface of all this material, not really going in any depth whatsoever, just saying. But, that's what it's meant to be, a taster. Because, I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff that, unless you take a tantric empowerment, can't be said. But as you can see, there's a whole bunch of stuff we can prepare for in the meantime and have our minds nicely ripened for that. Okay, so, all right, making space through not seeing. Okay, so I think what we'll do is do this in 2 sections, so we have a break in between the 2 bits. It sort of works better that way, I think. Okay, so space through not seeing, and this is coming to that clear light nature of mind. So as Lama Yeshe said, it's good. This comes back to what Florin was saying yesterday. You must have known, right on cue, coming in. At a certain point, you have to abandon the philosophical way of understanding things. In other words, using conceptual analysis. You must go beyond debate, beyond argument. So Lama Yeshe is saying he was advised that and was rather shocked. He says, I was a young and enthusiastic student at the time and liked to analyze and criticize everything I heard. So Lama Yeshe never did the Geshe exam, but he completed all the Geshe studies. There's no question of a doubt. He completed all of it, but he was not able to complete the exam. I can't remember if that had to do with going from Tibet to India or other circumstances, but it was, yeah, okay. But I eventually understood what he meant. Remaining caught up in intellectual preconceptions can prevent us entering profound meditational experiences. Remember that Lama Yeshe says that the empowerment, when we talk about the empowerment, is actually a shared meditation experience of the teacher and the student, right? It's both sides. So that's what we're trying to connect with. It's important to know when to relax, let go, and allow the mind to settle in its natural state of clarity, which is also where the non-duality we were talking about yesterday comes in. When you use your intellect, it is natural for all sorts of superstitious concepts to arise. In other words, we know that to realize emptiness, we have to use, until we have a direct perceptual realization of emptiness, we have to use our noggin, we have to use concepts, we have to use our intellect, the sword of Manjushri, sharper and sharper intellect, get more and more clear in that way. But then Lama Yeshe says your mind becomes overly busy and vibrates with fragmented energy of such concepts. Then since every state of mind is associated with its own wind or air energy, your subtle nervous system, so this is the system of, as Lama Yeshe also calls it, psychic energy of the chakras, channels, and other elements that come along later. Also becomes busy vibrating with various conflicting wind energies. So this is why they also say, and this comes on a bit later too, things like diet can become, particularly in the lower tantras, very, very important, because how is it affecting the subtle wind energies? We talk about abstaining from the black foods, which doesn't mean black in color. So those of you who've taken 8 Mahayana precepts, you may be familiar with that already. There are foods that you don't like, meat, eggs, garlic family, onion family, and radish. So Laudo, I said onion lama, but also means radish. The radish lama, I thought. So they've got to think about radish. So why? Because those energies are disturbing, exciting to the mind, or they disturb. So even at a gross level, maybe a gross level of mind, some of us can be aware of that, but a very subtle level, even more important. And then, when you take the 8 Mahayana precepts, it says, this comes with the power of speech. When we're blessing the power of speech, it has a little commentary. And it says, eating wrong foods, these wrong foods, black foods, diminishes the power of your speech, according to the lower tantras. So this is where it's specifically emphasized. Eating garlic takes away the power of one's speech for 7 days, the power of your speech. I mean, if you want to be a Buddha, you want people to pay attention to you. Of course, you want your speech to be meaningful, beneficial, kind, harmonious, all of those positive things. But if you can't engage their attention in the first place. I remember Venerable Dundrup, I feel embarrassed to say, but it's not embarrassment. Venerable Dundrup in Adelaide. It's in this retreat book, page 22. So it's also more elaborately in Direct and Unmistaken Methods, which is about the 8 Mahayana precepts. So it has a bit more about the black foods and so. So, and Venerable Dundrup, when I first heard his voice, when he was teaching, I was like, wow, you could listen to that voice all day. That's the power of speech you want. You want a voice that you'll want to listen to. And it's karma. It's karma. Different people have different responses, karmically to different teachers, which is why we have so many teachers, The Buddha was able to skillfully, according to the needs of the student, whatever form and so forth. And of course, the other way is they all emanate different forms for the different people, the different, or even animals, everything. Okay, so Onion takes away the power of your speech for 5 days. So we're talking the whole onion family, shallots and chives and every other bit of onion family there is. Yeah, shallots. Radish for 9 days. Nettles. Now, it doesn't say in those not to eat nettles. I mean, I suppose there's nettle tea, isn't there? I don't know if people go around eating nettles apart from Milarepa. Yes, nettle salad, whatever, for a whole year. And sheep tongue for one's whole life. I'm just so glad I never had a sheep tongue in my life. I'm just like, takes away the power of your speech. My poor mother, she loved ox tongue. I don't know how late in her life she was still eating. I mean, she didn't have it very often. That's a blessing, isn't it? Sheep's tongue. Anyway, so in other words, they play with these subtle energies of our body, right? I guess this comes up a bit in Ayurvedic, well, more than a bit, Ayurvedic medicine, you know, the sort of holistic approaches. Certainly we talked about yesterday, Chinese, Tibetan. We're talking about the pulse reading yesterday. Yogic food, yeah. So it comes up in the Hindu tradition quite a bit, and yeah, okay. So it affects our wind energies at a subtle level we're talking about, not at the gross level. This can also lead to a painful condition the Tibetans call lung. So this is an imbalance of the wind energies in our subtle body. This is the thing that can turn you crazy, lung. And the sad thing is when people have lung, they usually don't know they have lung. Everyone else can see that. Or maybe not everyone else, but others can see. Yeah, sure. It can, yes, it definitely manifests as mental health. Yeah, it can manifest physical, mental. So lung means literally a frustrated energy at the heart. So you can see it can be physical, right? As with all aspects of the spiritual path, there is a time to use the intellect and there's a time to put it aside. So we're talking about putting it aside at this point right now. So we know that our mind gets caught up in all these stories, thoughts, dreams, memory, images, plans, pretty much all the time, fantasies, worry. And if it's, you know, we have this tendency, if our mind is not worrying, we worry that it's not worrying. Have you ever noticed? Oh, I've got nothing to worry about. I better worry about that because there will be something to worry about. Like I think I've mentioned previously, you know, my friend who would leave a relationship while it was still good, just in case it turned bad. Subsequently, he's no longer in any relationships. It doesn't surprise me. Sorry, friend. Okay, still a friend, dear friend, actually very wise. Maybe not on that front. Okay, in other ways. So Lama Yeshe called these different deluded states of mind superstitious concepts because they're not founded in any sort of reality, any sort of wisdom, right? They affect our mind, our emotion, our mood, the state of our body. So there you go, it affects your body. Because it's so, how can we separate body, mind? For a start, we have all the sense consciousnesses on the basis of the body, right? So that's classified under, you know, as consciousness, awarenesses. The ultimate way of abandoning such a proliferation of stuff, developing wisdom, realizing emptiness. Okay, so we've been through that. So the way, other more accessible ways, so we're going to do a little reflection here. I want to make sure we've got time to do that, and then we'll have a break, and then we'll do the death one. Penetrate the opaqueness of our thought-created reality. In other words, the clouds of the fogginess of our mind. Learn to distinguish when our thinking is helpful. In other words, it has to be in sync with reality. That's the only way it's helpful. Just check up whether it makes us feel better, worse, or neither. When it's out of control, reactive, and leads to harmful behavior. Very clear, right? It's not always very clear because it's very sneaky. They sneak up on you, hijack your mind, and take it off on a roller coaster ride to somewhere you never wanted to go to in the first place. Leaving your good sense behind, absolutely. So we've got to create some mental space in there, okay? So we use these visualization meditations of the light of awareness. The light of wisdom illuminates, you know, like the sun. So when I was at one of the Lamp of the Paths in America, and she must be about 18 now, but this girl was about 10 years old. One of these kids that, you know, I don't think she took her parents to the Dharma Centre, like the one down in Brisbane. I think she was taken, but as soon as she went, Lama Zopa was there, right? She took refuge with Rinpoche immediately, and then she's having all these personal interviews. I'm just saying that because not that many people get the personal interviews, do they? I don't know, when you're in Copan, like 250 people request a personal interview. How many get it? 10 if you're lucky, you know. Anyway, Rinpoche announced in the class she has the capacity to be the sun, you know, lighting up the world. Okay, she's got a few qualities, right? And so Rinpoche's taken her under his guidance, and the whole family, actually. He's taken the whole guide, you know, he's giving them all jobs. I think her first one was learn the Heart Sutra in Tibetan, 10 years old. Anyway, I think her Tibetan's pretty good now. Okay, so yeah, and she wanted to ordain, right? Rinpoche said wait till you're 14. When she was 14, she was doing the teenage thing. So she wasn't quite ready yet. I don't know. Anyway, we'll watch this space, see what happens. And her sister as well, her younger sister. Okay. Letting the light of awareness, that's where we're up to. So that our ideas and concepts become more transparent and we're less likely to mistake them for reality. In other words, we become less opinionated, isn't it? Holding on to my view is the right view, by the way. And I'm going to convince you of that and that your view is wrong. I mean, a lot of the dynamics in the world are like that, isn't it? Seeing that it's all a manifestation, a mere play of our own minds. And the Buddha said we're all, and with these contaminated aggregates propelled by karma and delusions. Not only that, we can check up for ourselves. Then we've all got it wrong. So I think Lama Yeshe said that about, I mean, I'm not against relationships just because I'm ordained, right? Not at all. But Lama Yeshe said, well, you got one neurotic person gets in relationship with another neurotic one. I mean, you're bound for disaster, isn't it? Just thinking. Mind you, on the other hand, you know, this couple who Lama married, like did the ceremony for them. And they thought, well, Lama married us. I mean, there's not many people Lama married. And usually as monks and nuns, it's not a function because the Buddha didn't really talk about marriage. People say, what did the Buddha say about marriage? Not much. Wasn't where it was at, right? I don't know whether Buddha wanted everyone to become monks and nuns, because even now you request ordination, the lamas can give you different advice. I mean, I know I didn't know much about who'd ask for ordination or not because it's all kept top secret usually when I requested. But as soon as I was accepted for ordination, not only that, but it's going to happen quickly, then other people saying, oh, I asked so many years ago, Rinpoche said, do this and wait till this year and maybe next life. Or, you know, so it's not automatic at all because it depends on your karmic disposition and what's going to best benefit you in this life. It doesn't mean never. It just means maybe they're just not right now, you know. because actually I've got another job for you. I want you to marry a Tibetan, have Tibetan kids, and, you know, I mean, it happens, right? So we just never know. That's why we have our lamas. What about? He married? Yes. Yeah, out here. Osel, out there. I mean, he's not out there right now, but his photo is. It's a lovely picture of him with his little goatee. Yeah. Osel Hita. Tenzin Osel Hita. I believe he's not married. I think they're separated. Yeah. But what Lama Yeshe was so skillful at, very quickly understanding us Westerners. That's why these, you know, during at the end of our previous session, this young gentleman, he immediately picked up becoming our own therapist, didn't he? This is where you see it fly off the shelves. It's like Lama Yeshe calling you from afar. Zoom. Very skillful. Well, it's his title, it's his photo. Very easy to read. So yeah, very, very skillful. Just knew our mind. So it's no surprise that he would be married as a Westerner. And then these times of great degeneration, as I said to this young man, I said, well, of course, you know, he's not a monastic. I mean, he left the monastery because he wants to connect with the whole world. He thought film's the way to go. Connect with everybody. Speaks a few languages. Has a good music taste. Was posting music. Very good speaker. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Yeah, he's very, very skillful. He was going to be coming to Australia along with so many other people. You know, when we went into lockdown, just before that, we were going, what amazing karma we have. There was going to be Ling Rinpoche, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, Sakya Trizin, and someone else, or not maybe Sakya Trizin, yeah, the current Sakya Trizin, who's not Sakya Trizin, the elder is now called, but the current Sakya Trizin, they're all going to be in Australia. And there was even going to be, like, they'd all coordinated that Ling Rinpoche and Lama Zopa Rinpoche were going to meet up in Bendigo. And was like, we're going there, we'll be there. And that karma changed. And I saw, hey, the whole gang, you know, all the entourage, all the, you know, darkest Akinians, the whole entourage were coming. Anyway, we got the big love book and everybody's been reading it. Yep. Okay. So where was I up to? Oh, yes. So we're mistaken. And so we'll just quickly do a taster of this, allow the mind to settle into its natural state. I'm sure, you know, those of you probably, you know, had this meditation a few times or something related. Letting thoughts arise, abide, and pass away within the space of the mind without grasping, without distraction. Having no preference between a still mind and a moving mind. Because even having that, oh, my mind should be still right now, it becomes conceptual immediately, isn't it? Becomes very unstill very quickly. So it's counterproductive. And that all mind states are of the same nature, clear and knowing. Okay. So we're going to follow the words. Inspiration of Lama Yeshe. Okay, so sitting in a state of stillness, relaxation. Just before this, Lama Yeshe says, you're supposed to be cleaning your house, but your mind is thinking about going to the beach and eating ice cream. So it is a warm day here. This is when you run into difficulties, is it? Okay, so just bringing your mind as much as you can into the space of your body, into the present moment, because it's always one. The mind and the body, most of the time, don't feel like they're in the same place, do they? The mind's jumping out all over the place, even though your body's here, or past, future, another part of the world, whatever. But bringing your body and mind together, and the way that we can effectively do that is on the comings and goings of the breath, because it immediately brings you into the present moment, focusing on that. Can't breathe ahead or retrospectively. You can only breathe right in the present moment. So just bringing your awareness to the breath, wherever you experience that in the body is fine, not changing the breath, just giving your mind something to settle on, the movements of the breath in your body. And so this is a meditation on the clarity of the mind, but to start with just the mind in the state it is right now. Be aware. So any thoughts that arise, just be aware that they arise, they abide, they dissolve, all of their own. We don't have to push them away. We don't have to tell the thoughts to go away. In fact, it's counterproductive. It'll just create more. As we said this morning, they're in the nature of mind, in the nature of clarity, luminosity, space. They dissolve back into that space, just of their own accord. So no need to try and expel them forcefully. So just as the thoughts arise from this space of the mind, they naturally dissolve back into it. And when at that moment, when it dissolves back into the space of the mind, as much as you can, keep your awareness in that stillness, on that clarity, undistractedly, for as long as you can. So another analogy used, and when we come back to that water one we were discussing yesterday, is like a vast ocean. Lama Yeshe said, make your mind an ocean. Vast, plenty of space. So yes, there's plenty of space in the mind for all those fishy thoughts to swim around in, but not training our mind to not get distracted by them. Those fishy thoughts, darting around here and there, or big sluggish ones or whatever, repulsive ones, beautiful ones, not distracted one way or the other. So focusing your mind on if we think about the qualities of water, transparency, clarity, and particularly in the depths of the ocean, stillness, vast, refreshing, cool, powerful, calming. So we keep the light, the clarity, the light, luminosity of the mind on, not letting the mind become dull because we're not focusing on thoughts. So in that danger of sluggishness, like the muddy waters, shining the light of awareness, remain mindful of the underlying clarity out of which your thoughts arise, the underlying clarity, a subtle mind. The way to break the habitual view of our ignorant mind, our ego grasping mind, holding on to what are mere appearances as if they're concrete, solid. The mere thought, there's nothing solid in a thought, but how much do we grab onto it as if it's something real? We reify it, we make it real. Be aware of the fact we do that. So to break out of this is to see its illusory nature, its lack of substance, its fleeting nature, it's a fleeting appearance, a display to the mind, arising in the clear space of the mind. Be aware of that. Like flickering images of a movie across the space of the mind, but not getting caught up in their story. And as each thought dissolves back into the space of the mind, just observe that the actual disappearance of the thought, the emptiness of inherent existence of the thought, is more real than the thought itself. The concrete appearance of that thought originally, when that dissolves, that dissolution is more real. So in this way, we train our mind to not see, not grasp, becoming more and more familiar with the clear spaciousness, the mere vacuity of our mind. So this vacuity, this purity is always within us. And whatever disturbances of that, whatever afflicted states arise, are mere displays, superficial. You know, we can think about the ripples on the top of the lake, just disturbances by the wind, by the superficial obscurations that eventually pass and leave us resting, dwelling in this essentially clear nature of the mind, the Dharmakaya. And this immediately leads us, this letting go of the grasping, this letting go, leaving aside the thoughts, leaving aside good, bad, any other labels, leads us to the experience of non-duality. As we said with the water, you know, the pollution is not in the nature of water, it be purified. It's just like the sky, as we said earlier, the clouds dissolve back into the space of the sky. The sky maintains its own nature. The space of the mind maintains its own nature, unpolluted. So in the same way, no matter whatever neurotic thoughts or disturbing emotions we have, however many problems we have created by our grasping ego concepts, none of them infect the clean, clear nature of consciousness itself. It remains pure because it is by its nature pure. It never becomes mixed with the nature of confusion, which is a mere appearance to that mind. So thinking that the non-dualistic nature, the direct perceptual nature of mind, is never damaged by dualistic concepts that arise in it. It feels like it is, but it's not. Your consciousness is always pure, always has been pure, always will remain pure. So the conclusion we come to is that we all have this potential because we have this innate purity, clarity of the mind that is unpolluted. We all have the capacity to move from this polluted state of self-grasping, of conflict, of duality, to a naturally clean, clear state of pure consciousness itself. And if the more we familiarize with this, train ourselves to identify this, to abide in this natural, unaffected state of consciousness, we will eventually experience the freedom of non-dual awareness. Mere awareness. Simply aware. In this space empty of all concrete discrimination, this and that, concepts, memories, plans, the space junk of the mind, as Lama Yeshe said, our mind feels calm, boundless, free of limitation, incredibly powerful, no longer occupied with seeing is believing. Not believing in the inherent existence, the ultimate reality of the ordinary appearances of our conventional lives, entering into perfect seeing, the experience of non-duality. And this experience itself is the bliss, realizing emptiness, which is sometimes called the bliss of nirvana. Okay, so just relax. Relax, relax, relax. Okay, it's time for a break. My gosh, time flies. Okay, so I'm sort of revising slightly the plan. Does it surprise you? So I did want to go through the death process, but I think we're going to have to do that at the retreat weekend because otherwise I'm going to go quickly through it and there's no point. So some of us have encountered this previously, of, you know, when those who were involved with the impermanence and death module, death and rebirth, was it? Death and rebirth, or impermanence and death, impermanence, death, rebirth. So this is very, very important, particularly for highest yoga tantra. It comes in very strongly. But we haven't even gone through the different levels of tantra, so I feel like we're jumping the gate or whatever. Because it is something that is used. You know, we're talking about the natural clarity, purity of the mind, tapping into this innate clear light mind. You know, the more we are able to do that, which is then, we say, taking the death process into the path to be transformed from, anyway, so we'll talk about that next time. Death, intermediate state, rebirth. We won't go elaborately into those because I think that comes along when you do an empowerment, but just some concepts around that. Yes, yes, when I hear the Dalai Lama teaching and he says, I read Chandrakirti into the middle way every day, I read Nagarjuna, and I'm like, okay, and Lama Tsongkhapa, and this meditation. I'm like, okay. I mean, maybe he does them all simultaneously, you know, probably does, you know. Okay, so we'll take a break here. We won't rush that one because we've also got to go through what I've outlined for session 5. Well, it's almost 1:45. Can we take 15 minutes? Is that too short? I mean, for the Zoomers, it's probably not too short, but everyone here, pee-pee break? We can do it. Okay, 3 o'clock, we'll start. Yeah, we can chat. Sure. Unless anyone wants to say. So you can chat amongst yourselves, or we can chat together, or whatever. Go on, or pee-pee break, cuppa, whatever. Cold water, iced tea. So how's it?
There is no sound at the moment.
How's that, Ingrid?
Yep, sound is on. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
That's a subtle message. I can't hear a thing.
I like this program.
Yeah. She's probably there, but not as contact. Thank you. No, I thought it might be the response, but it wasn't.
Which one is this?
Yes, up there, up the top. And we have somewhere a very huge life-size, more than life-size, maybe a few life-size, Lama Yeshe on the beach, Sunshine Coast. Big. Long one, big one. Yeah. That's a long story. He totally has. Yeah. Well, so that the Copan courses, they only went to the last Copan course for a while now. I don't know when they're going to have the next one. But at the Copan course and at the beginning, Lama Zopa would be in there and he'd be talking about the hell realms and suffering for about 3 weeks. And then people were thinking of leaving. Lama Yeshe, even he'd pop out of nowhere and read people's minds and say something that would convince them to stay. Or he'd come in the evenings to cheer everyone up. So they'd get another dose then of suffering hell realms and then be cheered up in the evening. But I also heard he can be very, very wrathful. I know. It's just like you get so many different faces in a few seconds. Yes, as you come up. Yeah, the one on its own. Yeah. When you come up the stairs, go around a few times. I presume so. I haven't checked it out. I think so. A plaque. There probably are, because this was the first centre. So his brother was the first Geshe here, or second, yeah. But this was the first centre he set up outside of India and Nepal, outside, yeah. Well, Copan, Lama Zopa's home base, and then Tashida, and then here, then California, Vajrapani. That is still here. I know they talked about the first Vajrasattva retreat with Lama. I'll tell you what, we felt like we were in a lap of luxury when we heard about what they went through. No four, we didn't have a four. Yeah. Anyway, things have changed now. Yes, a lot of hippies. Okay, so, all right, folks, I'm going to try and, I'm turned on. Yeah, I'm live, I'm everything there needs to be. I didn't mean that in that way, quite, but, you know, technology-wise, all the conditions are coming together on the technology. So while we have that opportunity, and including the people in Gompa with me, okay. This talks about the bliss of inner fire, but sorry, folks, that's a pre-taster for next time, because that's also another important meditation. But the idea is, you know, yesterday we talked about we need to have a mind of renunciation. So it's not about saying, oh, you don't need renunciation to engage in Tantra. You absolutely do. We do talk about taking desire into the path, and it's on the basis of this bliss energy. We talk about bliss a lot, and everyone goes, what the hell is that? So I can say, don't ask me. No, it's, so they usually, not necessarily. bliss in terms of the different levels of joy, right? So joyful experiences that it is said are way beyond the joys or the bliss factors of this life. Okay, so as Lama Yeshe said, as we become more and more familiar with the blissful experience of clear light. So we had that little taster, and you might have said, well, I don't know, I didn't experience any bliss there. But as we familiarize, we might at least say it's a relief from all the blah, 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 blah. So that already has a joyful component, I hope, to it. There's at least one very convinced student here. Absolutely, Venerable Yangchu is totally like, yes, it is. It is a relief from, I mean, if you think, even when we sit down to meditate and we focus our energies inwards and we withdraw as much as we can from sensory input. Of course, you know, maybe we say, well, I haven't fully withdrawn from sensory input, but it's a huge relief. I think just that is the attraction of meditation sometimes, you know, is that I'm not having more stuff coming in. It feels relaxing. May not yet be peaceful, but it's relaxing, right? At least that. May not yet be stable, may not yet have the clarity, but phew, I can breathe out, right? And the breathing out is the letting go, it's the letting go, it's the letting go. Okay. Oh, have I skipped? Yes, I have. Okay. Using the, yeah, we're on 5. So using this blissful factor as grist for the mill, or not grist for the mill, about and its actual practice, using that in our practice. The desirous energy that we regard in this conventional world that we usually get from, let's say, Lama Yeshe says unsatisfactory situation. We can say unsatisfactory in that it's not permanent, it's not enduring, right? It's not a continuous, it's fleeting. You know, we were talking before about orgasm, for example. We weren't talking very much about it, I can assure you. But that's sort of, because that's in our conventional sense, probably the greatest bliss as a human we can experience. I'm not sure. In an ordinary sense, right? Which is why people get caught up in these whole tantric sex and so forth, because I think that's where it's at, and it just brings it all into a very conventional world which traps us in samsara. So that's not where it's at.
However, all the yogis and all the real blissful, they say that basis of the sexual activity is much lower.
That's exactly the point, Florin. It's nothing like the bliss you get from these practices. Precisely, that's the point the Buddha made, right? Absolutely correct. Yeah, nothing like it, right? We just got to take it on faith, I think. Maybe some of you don't have to take it on faith, but I do. Okay. But we prepare for that. So this, if we look at it at that conventional level of bliss, it really is only ever going to provide temporal satisfaction. Okay. But the other way is to take an unsatisfactory situation or the experience of bliss into the path so that we transform it through Tantra, as Lama Yeshe says, the alchemy of Tantra, into some transcendental experience of bliss and wisdom. And so there's where we say the illusory body, the Sambhogakaya aspect that we visualize in the meditation, and the clear light mind, which is the wisdom, the union of these two. Because the wisdom realizing emptiness itself is a factor of bliss. Just like when you sort of meditate on the clarity of mind, you haven't realized emptiness yet. But there, as we said, there's some level of relief, if not joy, if not bliss. So we're accessing those qualities as we can right now from maybe a conventional sense, but looking at empowering those qualities through tantric practice. So it says the practitioner focuses the penetrating brilliance of this blissful wisdom so that it cuts like a laser beam through all the false projections of this and that and pierces to the very heart of reality, right? The very heart of reality. So this is where we see, you know, it's like Manjushrie's sword cuts through. And once you see that, you can never unsee. You know, once you cut through, it's like you have that conviction because you have that experience, and that experience will never be shaken, correct? Like if, I mean, just right now we'll say, well, I don't have that experience, but nobody's going to convince me of other than this path. They can have their opinions. I can respect their opinions. But I'm not going to be swayed because I have a few years' experience of saying, yep, the more I go on in this, the better it is for my mind, for my behavior, and therefore the world. At least my world, you know, my sphere of influence, right? And I have heard that people say, my partner told me I should go back to the Buddhist center. I haven't been for a while. I should go back, do meditation, whatever. What? Isn't it time you went back to that Dharma center? You want to go to Chenrezig? It'd be good for you. Of course, you're thinking it'd be good for them, but, you know, that's another story. That's their business. Okay. So in the Tibetan tradition, this transformation of our desire energy, because, you know, we have that energy. It's not denying that. So tell me if you get this energy, if this is this analogy, because it's used a lot, this particular one. So the analogy is about these wood borers, wood insects. So they're born from the wood. In other words, they hatch in the body of the wood, of a tree, and then they feed on the tree as they grow, right? And they eat the very wood from which they were born. I hope this is working for you. So this is what it's saying. Through the practice of Tantra, of transforming desire, giving birth to insightful wisdom, we transform that. And that itself consumes all the negativities obscuring our mind. So we're not saying, oh, desire. So on the sutra path, we're saying desire. If I'm desiring a body, I've got to reflect on the ugliness of the body. Right. Desiring chocolate cake, got to, you know, I'll take apart all the ingredients and say which bit of this is the bit I desire. And knowing me, it'll be actually none of those bits. Or the whole. But there you go. Paper carton that it comes in, yeah. I think Venerable Rabina said that. She said she eats fresh, no, she said she eats cardboard. And then she said, oh no, she doesn't, she eats fresh air. And I thought, I would love to. Chulen, live off the essence, you know. Believe me, I do not see this. We're born in a desire realm. Yes, you're using what you've got, like you feed off that wood, or we feed off those desires, but not to keep us trapped in samsara, but to transform them. Yeah, they're getting out of the tree. They're being liberated from the tree. We're being liberated from samsara. We're using this desire in the path, including the sexual desire, which is why it says the desire that gave it birth. You know, the sexual, the mummy and daddy coming together, that gives it birth, right? So, yeah, poison is used to cure some disease. So this is where the affliction itself, let's say, becomes the antidote, becomes the liberator.
But it's also because I think there's no other way. because there are many other traditions or religions whatever to suppress your desire. I don't think that works.
Suppressing desire does not work, because sooner or later, anything that's suppressed is going to come up. So we can't do it by suppression. Absolutely. Okay. So you're letting go of the attachment to those desires. So you can, like Tenzin Palmer, the princess said to, you can enjoy it while you've got it, but not being attached to that being the source of my happiness, because it's not. If it was, every bit more you had would only ever increase.
If you enjoy your coffee, and then I will take it away, and you miss it so much that you become angry.
So that's where it becomes addiction. So craving, addiction, isn't it? Or if it's not there, you're happy. Yes. That's what you're aiming for. So it's a non-attachment. But if sometimes people say to me, or you probably hear it yourselves, right? And they see the chocolates lying there. I mean, that's what I hear it in relation to. They might see something else there. But they never say, oh, avocado, I shouldn't. But they do say, chocolate, I shouldn't. And my point is, if you're going to have it, enjoy it. Why say I shouldn't and then take it and eat it? You might as well enjoy it to the max. So that's what the Buddha's saying. Enjoy it to the max. Go for it, right? So that's what we're doing. So the intensity of desirous energy, a practitioner is skillful enough to direct into the spiritual part. So we've got to see this context. It's not desire for the sake of desire. It's using the energy of that, the blissful energy of that, to engage your spiritual practice, right? So this is described, illustrated in sort of different levels, different images of increasing sexual intimacy. Now, when we see this, when we hear this, it's not about sex. Why these? It's an analogy. We've got many, many symbols. These are other symbols. What did we say the male side represented? Compassion, method, and you engage with that on the basis of the body. You need your body to do those things, right? Action. So that's, we say the method side in Tantra becomes represented by the male form. And then the wisdom side gets represented by the female form. And so when we say that, what is it representing? What did we say? It's the union of those in one mind, one consciousness. So it's not about sex. It's about, this is just an analogy, a representation, because we understand that orgasm is a blissful state. But and they're shown in this embrace 24/7, as Geshe Samten said the other day. If it was about sex, you wouldn't be in embrace 24/7. What would be the point? I mean, let's face it, right? It makes sense. I thought, never heard that one before. Geshe, thank you very much. It's always good to hear a different take. He said, if it was about the sex, there's no other point of that conjoining except to bring that very subtle level of mind to completion. Conventional truth, ultimate truth, wisdom and bliss, bring those two together. There's no other point. He said, what would be the point 24/7 in sexual union? I mean, let's not make commentary about that. Thanks. We don't have time. And we don't need to. Okay. So the different levels of Tantra, we talk about the lower Tantras, the higher Tantras, the different levels talk about this in relation to that coming together in sexual unity at different levels of bliss. So you're seeing with different levels of Tantra, increasing bliss, right? So the first level, Action Tantra, Kriya Tantra, is probably, hopefully, the first one we engage with. This is more focused on external activities. So those of you who've done Nyungne or Mani retreat, we haven't been so strict with the Mani retreat, but with Nyungne, we talked about, we're focusing on diet. So we said this is an in a way external thing, but it's related to our internal channels, winds, so forth. So it's related to the subtle body, but we focus on, refraining from engaging in certain foods. We focus on cleanliness. Sometimes, excuse me, trying to decide what I'm transforming tea into. Anyway, it's an experience of bliss. No, it's warm.
Isn't there some of these verses somewhere is about golden tea?
Yes, we're offering golden tea, but that's another, we won't go there. Okay, that's another commentary. So, yeah, I mean, we make the offerings here, right? And we put saffron in it. Why? Purity, where we just do pure water. Like Tibet's got the purest water. They say that in Tibet, actually, often you see the saffron's a really Indian thing, isn't it? It's come from the Hindu tradition anyway. So, but saffron's precious, right? And so this is a precious substance. We like to offer precious substance. And the color makes our mind think of the water being like nectar, which is how the higher realm beings experience as nectar. I mean, they experience bliss 24/7, right? So it emphasizes the externals. Cleanliness, making offerings, it's very much part of this. So we set up our Nyungne offerings. I mean, we do for other levels of Tantra as well. I'm not saying we don't do those things, but it's very much on the external activities. That's the main focus. It's not saying we're not doing meditation at the same time. Because as I said, when you come along to the Nyungne practice, there's so much different meditation going on. And of course, we're doing mantras and so forth. So, yeah. So this level of Action Tantra, Kriya Tantra. So the sorts of Kriya Tantra, Action Tantra empowerments we may have had or have the opportunity to have at some point. Well, His Holiness gave Chenrezig empowerment online earlier this year and said, if you're here and you with a mind of faith, I don't even think he said if you understand what you're doing, because let's face it, most of us don't. I mean, first time, what do you know? But, the seed is planted. So you've taken that Kriya, Action Tantra, empowerment. And then if His Holiness says, and do one mala or so many malas of Om Mani Padme Hum a day, that becomes your commitment from that practice. We talk about commitments. And we never know the commitment until we actually take the empowerment. As I said yesterday, we get some indication, like FPMT say, well, usually when Lama Zopa Rinpoche gives this empowerment, this is the commitment. When he gives this one, but it's not necessarily the case. It can change. As I said, with the Medicine Buddha, some people got a mala of the long mantra, some got, you choose how many numbers of, different things, right? So Medicine Buddha is another one. So the Medicine Buddhas, we do Medicine Buddha Puja here. Well, behind the screen there's a Medicine Buddha, lapis light, sapphire light, beryl, you said, blue beryl. I'm not a gemologist, but, healing, Lama Zopa's book, Ultimate Healing, has the very beautiful, extensive meditations on Medicine Buddha or the Medicine Buddhas. And so they made a commitment when they were training on the path at this time of great degeneration to be here to help heal the world. So this is now, time of degeneration of the environment. We don't have to go too far to see that. Of ethics, we don't have to go too far to see that in terms of increasing conflict, less peace in the world, and so forth and so forth. I mean, you could say, well, a century ago it was like that too, but the Buddha's looking in big picture terms here. Go back to the time of the Buddha. How many spiritual seekers were around? It seemed everybody was on a spiritual path. Doesn't seem that way these days. Just look at the census, and we're going to have another one next year, or they're getting ready for it, right? So we'll see. But the people engaging in any sort of religious path or spiritual path, you don't have to be a religion, is decreasing. So there's a degeneration of physical well-being and mental well-being. I mean, if nothing else, COVID's told us that, if nothing else. But just think over the last century, how many more physical illnesses that weren't there a century before, let alone when we get to mental illness. You know, some years back, I'd be like, oh, someone's got a kid who has, you know, been diagnosed with a mental health issue. Now it seems everybody's got a kid who's been diagnosed. You know, I mean, I don't know how pervasive it is. Yeah, little kids quit. How young? 10 years old. Terrible, isn't it? And this is one of the other degenerations. So lifespan, life expectancy will go down to 10 years. We say, how can that happen? Life's, you know, we're living longer. But only if we look at it in a short period of time. You know, in the sutras where it says, oh, those poor human beings who only live 100 years. And we think 100 years is, well, either pretty good or pretty bad if you're a 100-year-old. You know, you're just like, I'm over it, right, already. I think one of our politicians said we were going, you know, when we're living to 120, and everyone went, oh, no, don't say that. I think it was filling of the perishing aggregates, actually, the body. Anyway, so time of great degeneration, there's increased, we spoke a bit yesterday. So this is when the medicine Buddha said, we'll be there. And I remember some years ago in Nepal, and that Papin, and Geshe Tenzin Zopa was there, just happened to, it wasn't luck, obviously, but just happened to be there at the same time. But that said that medicine Buddha is the sutra practice of this time. It makes sense because it is a time of great degeneration, right? So doing these healing practices, even though what's been interesting with COVID, we've been told, Tara, why? We need swift action. And Taito Gyalpo's page, we need really swift, heavy duty action right now. Okay, so they fit into, action tantra. So you could also get white Tara empowerment, green Tara empowerment at the action tantra level, Vajrasattva empowerment at this level, and so forth, right? And the analogy in terms of increasing sexual intimacy is that this is for those who can use, it says, the bliss of looking at each other, looking at a attractive palmer, you know, stealing a glance. It's sort of like, I was going to say safe distance. Well, maybe it's new fashion with COVID, compassionate distancing. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, I'm not going to do that. One, the first one. So it's the first level. So the second level, performance tantra. So this one, I mean, we commonly seem to, at least what I've been aware of in the times I've been around Tibetan Buddhism in the last, 30 years or so, especially in our tradition, has been mainly like, haven't come across performance tantra, Charya tantra. So performance tantra is moving towards more, it's still emphasizing the external activities and so forth, accumulation, purification, accumulation of virtue and so forth, making the offerings, but it becomes also more moving towards more internal yogas. So this is so they say that the first level, if they had this second level of bliss, it'd be too much. So you're sort of like, oh no, I'm okay with this one, right? I'll just stick right here. Yeah, don't touch my hand. Don't come near me. It's safe distance, but you look pretty good. I quite like that. Makes me feel, the heart jumps and I've got an experience of bliss. Okay. The second level emphasizes I said that bit. Okay. So this one exchanging smiles. So you're getting a little bit more serious. Like you're both acknowledging each other. You're not sort of silent glance. Or laughter, giggly. You know that giggly phase? Where you sort of, you feel all bubbly. No, I was thinking of the bubbly feeling, and I was thinking, okay, so having an experience of that, which wasn't about the literal sexual stuff. So the Jade Buddha, I'll just say it. There's no way around. The Jade Buddha, you know, the amazing polar Jade Buddha, which is now installed in Bendigo. So it was traveling around, and it was in Western Sydney at this temple. And there was a Lama who was, she's in a different tradition, but she was leading, she do like, a lot of Lamas do this, or Jangwa or whatever, the prayers that you do on the once a year for people who've died, right? And so she was doing these practices. And I was there, and I had a joyous time, you know, there. I mean, on later reflection, I realized I was like a giggly schoolgirl. That's this, the giggly schoolgirl effect. So this is how I was. I was sort of like a little giggly schoolgirl and delighted and so forth. And then the next day, people started sending photos from the Blue Mountains and all sorts of places where they could see the light around the Jade Buddha. Because one of the things, I don't know, like go to Vietnam and Korea and all these places, and they used to have it posted online to see, what do they call it? Mandala lights. So lights, so we say where the statue is, the Buddha is. So there were like the lights in the form of mandalas, literally, these little circles and universes, layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. So they would report about these. People would take it with their phone. You felt a light energy around, but you couldn't, I mean, my eyes couldn't perceive anything like this. But people said, I saw a glow from the Blue Mountains. Or anyway, people took photos, and there they were. Of course, we show them to the Lamas. They just all look at each other and don't say a word. And so they're not going to say anything. So we weren't any the wiser. And so you suddenly realize, yes, there was a blissful, joyful thing happening, right? And that's why I felt like this little giggly little schoolgirl. That's what this one is, performance tantra, giggly. You know, what do we call it? Infatuation, is it? Maybe infatuation phase? I don't know. Falling in love, okay. Falling in love again, not again. So again, as I say, in our tradition, we don't see it. So Varachana, you know, you might, anyway, you don't, I haven't seen it offered by our Lamas anytime recently. Others might have. Okay.
For example, some monasteries maybe at different schools.
Yes.
They do some
The ritual dances can be, yeah. So ritual dances can be related to Tantra or not. So when we went, for example, I mentioned the Kala Chakra. Certainly when we went to the Kala Chakra in Sydney, they had all the dances and ritual dances for that. The explanation of that we didn't get because, you know, it was before the event. Actually, they had a whole Tibetan festival happening there. So it was great. Food, dance, all sorts of things, but the particular dances. So yes, there are people trained in those ritual dances, and I guess they've got, each movement has a significance, and the visualizations that you do and the meditation practice that you do and all of that sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, I only know the little taster, as Romy knows, from the Dakini dances, and there's a little bit commentary you can have access to there, but it's still not a lot, you know, and that's because we're requesting the Lama to stay here and teach as we do in the 7 limb prayer, you know, please remain and teach us, because the Dakinis meanwhile are saying, oh, could you come to the Pure Land and teach us? And they're very seductive, you know, and so, and they do this gorgeous dance, and then they have to have their eyes covered with the fringes coming down, because it's said that if the Lama could be seduced by, you know, whisked off to the Pure Land. But anyway, it's severed. I mean, in our in the dances that we've done here. Severed that, you know, the katas are cut symbolically, severing that they're not going to the Pure Land, staying here for the benefit of the world, and the dakinis go off happily because the human beings are going to benefit. Yay, everyone rejoices. So anyway, I know a little bit about that one. It's a wonderful, joyful thing. But a tantric commentary on that, not my area. Okay. So, and then, so these are the two main lower tantras, and then we get to the higher tantras. So we're getting more and more levels of bliss. And then within the tantra itself, there's more and more levels of bliss. And particularly when you get to highest yoga tantra. So the yoga tantra, yoga tantra emphasizes the internal yoga over external activity. So you can see you becoming more focused on the inner experience of bliss. So it's not, I'm looking at you from afar, it's you're internalizing that. So this is the bliss. You now made contact, holding hands. It's very sweet, isn't it? We like that they take time. I think it's a suggestion to us to take time with our tantric practice so that we get familiar with that and how to use it, you know. So using that blissful energy, it's mere analogy, as I said. And then highest yoga tantra emphasizes internal yogas. So this is where we see the representations mainly in sexual union, you know. So it's bringing the bliss and emptiness, the illusory body and the clear light into one, the experience of bliss and emptiness in one consciousness, okay? Method and wisdom in a tantric context. Would you like some tissues over there? Here. If I throw it, it'll fall on the floor. Take the books. Okay. All right. So you can see it's it increases. So next time we will look at this process as much as we can of the inner fire. So there is a book, Inner Fire, right? Bliss of inner fire. Yeah, I knew the bliss word was there. Was that inner fire bliss? No, that's not it. Bliss of inner fire. Used to have a red cover. I don't know if it still has a red cover. It's in the library. Bliss of inner fire. So we use these practices, and this where yesterday we were talking a little bit about the channels in the body. So we'll look at that a bit when we do the meditation retreats and some of these different practices. So we'll focus a little bit on Chenrezig, obviously, because for discovering Buddhism, you know, the Nyungne commitment. So it's good to have a familiarization of that. And we are Chenrezig Institute. And it's very elaborate. You know, you think, oh, lower tantras, it's much simpler. Actually, I think it's the other way around. It's very complicated. You look at all these practices to do and you go, what? How can I do all that simultaneously? So last year here, was it last year? We did we did the tantric grounds and paths with Geshe Tsultrim, lower tantras, and then we did the higher tantras. Anyway, so it's a lot of elaborate visualization. You can see why you have to transform ordinary appearances because you're doing it all the time. It's like, oh, it's not like that, it's like this, it's like this, it's like this. A display of bliss, many displays of bliss, okay? So Hatha Yoga Tantra, the main practice, the two stages, generation stage and completion stage. So generation stage is when we're, like I mentioned a bit this morning, we have these structures to a sadhana practice. We do our preliminaries, we visualize the mandala, visualize ourselves as a deity, and in the mandala make the offerings, receive offerings, light goes out, light comes out, all these things happen. And so generation is the one of what we call rehearsal for the Buddha will become. We haven't yet got there, so we're practicing by bringing the result into the path, but it's not yet the result. The result is the completion stage. So there are also, one can have teachings and commentaries on the completion stage, even you're not at that stage, but to have that, and I guess at least lay those imprints in our mind. You have permission to have that once you have those highest yoga tantra empowerments, okay? All right. So just a couple of minutes remaining, which is just as well, but it's running out of time.
Question for the Tara and Vajrasattva, you mentioned at the
Yes.
Kriya level. So are they
Well, I'm familiar with, when I say familiar with, I'm aware of that. So we have Tara at Kriya Tantra level and Vajrasattva at Kriya Tantra level and at highest yoga Tantra level. And this is where, because we have, as I mentioned yesterday, the Vajrasattva practice has them in union. This was based on Lama Yeshe, the lineage that we received in this organization from Lama Yeshe. It must be the most frequently asked question to FPMT education. Hang on a minute. Are people allowed to do that? Like the end of year Vajrasattva retreat, when I was first asked to lead that before, you know, quite some years ago, but it was anyway, I wasn't living here at that point. They said, oh, you have to do solitary Vajrasattva. You can't do, because they haven't got highest yoga tantra. But that's not the lineage, and that's not what we have in FPMT, you know. And so every Lama, we trust they know what they're doing, you know. And that anyway, you're visualizing above the crown of your head. You're not visualizing yourself as rising as that. So the you know, in the tantric highest yoga tantra, be like Haruka Vajrasattva. And I was just picking this up because we have a Haruka Vajrasattva sog in here. I think we have, because normally on at Losar, which is, you know, the anniversary of Lama Yeshe, we offer. Well, we don't always do that here. We might do Guru Puja, but the Haruka Vajrasattva Swag to honor Lama Yeshe, right? And so this Haruka Vajrasattva Swag, it was interesting because when we were doing the 3-month Vajrasattva retreat, we were doing the Swag once a week. And we'd play the recording of Lama Yeshe doing that. It's a very short thing when you do it Inji style, but it was beautifully elaborate, but a little bit long. And so after a few weeks, people said, I really like it, but could we do it shorter? Because we've also got to get through our 100,000 mantras. And we're doing it every week. So it's wonderful and it's very rich, you know, fantastic. So that's, and in Tara, Chittamani Tara, again, we have in here Tara with the 4 mandalas, right? So that's our monthly practice of commitment here. The 4 mandala offerings to Chittamani Tara. So those who've taken the Chittamani Tara empowerment can do like those aspects. That's a highest yoga tantra. So sometimes it's said only somebody who has that and has completed the retreat, etc., can lead that. We say that that's the best possible option, you know, when we're having those pujas here. But maybe a lot of you don't need to worry about that. So probably everybody, except for us, few of us nuns. Except for Venerable Womo, because she does the shopping, she has to know what to get, you know. Okay, so these are the 4 levels of Tantra. And as I was saying yesterday, you know, not only do people want to jump without the foundation of Sutra straight into Tantra, people are like, oh, Tantra, I want to go to that. I mean, we could do a test. Name the 3 principles of the path. And what do they mean? And explain. Not do you have a realization of it? I mean, that would be silly, but, well, it wouldn't be silly necessarily. But what's your understanding of those? But we don't do a test. We just say these are the prerequisites, right? Because we don't want people to drown at the deep end of the pool. Because not only do they want to go straight into Tantra, they want to go straight into highest yoga Tantra. Oh, no. I want the quick method. Well, it won't be quick for you if your mind's not prepared for it. It could go the other way, right? There's a comment. In the Vajrasattva empowerment Rinpoche gave last year at the November course, he specified to do solitary Vajrasattva. There you go. Yes, he did. Okay, Leonie was here too. You were there? I mean, I know. Yeah, rather than in consort, another example of lamas having given slightly different requirements when giving empowerments. Because I also heard another year they did Haruka. It's all karma. I mean, I have, you know, taken both, like solitary and like Chodron Rinpoche gave solitary and then both, and anyway, whatever. And the cards with the solitary. So you didn't get the little package practice. So it might be interesting. I mean, Lama Zopa might change that for FPMT. For Discovering Buddhism might henceforth. We'll find out. Those who are joining us in the beginning of the next round next year. So yes, it can be different. And the thing is, if we're not sure what it is that we've taken and what it is we're visualizing and so forth, make sure that we check in with a senior monastic. The more senior you can find there, the better, right? I mean, you might not be able to rock up to the Lama because they might have left town, although these days they don't even come to town. But we're lucky, you know, because straight after the Chenrezig empowerment with His Holiness, we could clarify now what was that. Whereas a lot of people zoom in or watch on YouTube, and we can say, okay, it's blessed your mind, but are you sure what you did? So when I talked about the Kriya Tantra, say for a, you know, there's so many technicalities. So a great empowerment, minimum will be 2 days. Highest Yoga Tantra, minimum 2 days. But it might be 3. I remember one time, Chodron Rinpoche, and it's not always the same. And people didn't turn up on the Friday evening because they thought, oh, that's just the preliminaries, I don't need to go. Well, they couldn't come on the Saturday or the Sunday. It was like, no, that was the preparation. You can't come. So it can happen. Yamantaka. So we have these 3, they're called the 3 main ones. I'm looking at the merit. So we do have 4 lineages coming down there, but the main ones that we have in our tradition of the tantras, the ones coming down, you know, the lineages like that. And then we have underneath. So we have Lama Tsongkhapa, your own gurus, and then you have highest Yoga Tantra, and then each level down and so forth. So this is Chakra Samvara, Haruka Chakra Samvara, Guru Samaja, which is the most elaborate commentary, so, and Yamantaka, right? So they're 3 main ones. And then you have, anyway, it gets very technical. You can have subsequent ones where it says you can't take this one and then unless you've taken that one, and you know, it gets all complicated. All right. But I do remember just the Yamantaka, the Rofor aspect of Manjushu. Right? There was a time, at that time, actually, when Chodron Rinpoche was giving that, he gave in Australia a few times, in New Zealand. Lama Zopa gave in Indonesia. I said, Rinpoche, there seems to be a lot of need for Yamantaka in this part of the world. Of course, they don't say anything. I mean, there's a need in the world, right? Okay. All right, we're over time. Sorry, folks. So regardless of what might be laid down as this one's this and that one's that, we do have to check up at the time of an empowerment and what those commitments are and everything like that. But at least we might, you know, might be saying, well, forget it. I'm not taking any of these anytime soon. That's okay. But at least we've got some working knowledge, right? We've got some working knowledge. And as we've said, and we'll unpack more in the retreat weekend, the meditations we can do, which are very strong preparation, you know, because, you know, I mean, the people in prison, right, you know, as part of Liberation Prison Project, even Rinpoche wrote to one of them and said, you know, this is your life practice, and it was a highest Yoga Tantra thing. And then I was like, you're not going to get an empowerment in prison, right? And so I followed up and it was like, well, no, when the time comes, you know, so we can prepare him with all the preparatory stuff for that. So when the time comes, he's got a working basis, a good foundation. And so that's what we all want, a good foundation. Meantime, you can look at the Nyungne text, Introduction to Tantra, or the other, which is a joyous book, very easy to read. I'm not talking about understanding, but Lama Yeshe had a way with words that just goes straight to the heart, isn't it? Your visualization, you just go, yeah, that's it. So becoming Compassion Buddha, becoming Vajrasattva, the visualizations, just the purification visualizations are wow, you know. So the more we can read around that or contemplate, you know, read around it is good. Yes, the introduction to Tantra, Lama Yeshe, there's 2 parts.
And that one, the transcript has been included in the Essential of Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, Chapter 2.
Yes, so Essence of Tibetan Buddhism, it has that, yeah, that's the transcript of that. So I suggested, so you can get that online, lamayeshe.com, or we've got copies in the Gompa. I'm pointing at it. I'm not pointing it at you, Eva. I shouldn't be pointing at the Dharma either. Like this, okay. Open hand gestures. Okay, so I think we have to stop there for now, press the pause button. But before we do that, we better dedicate. So those of us who have our prayer books here, I was going to say little, but these prayer books are not little. Lama Zopa apparently wanted to include the Ganden Nigema Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga into this book, and it was kindly suggested that maybe the book was getting a bit too thick. Anyway, there's so much you could include. And those of us who remember different versions of previous books is like, why is that not there anymore? Like the colour pickies. I love the colour pictures. I'm sure we all do. Anyway, those of you who have it, page 321. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your patience online and with the sound and the technical issues and so forth. But at least we got to connect, you know, whatever form. And also,
thanks, Venerable.
And also, just to say hi, Kate. So also to say that we're planning ahead, of course. We had a little discussion over lunch. We're celebrating Venerable Wanglo's birthday and Venerable Gompo in his absence. Oh, and Medi labelled. So next year, there'll be a new round of Discovering Buddhism, and people are contemplating about whether they want to participate in that. I mean, people have joined in at various places, but some people have done, I mean, I know in Sydney and various other places, 2-3 times, no problem, because at whatever level we're at, it deepens our experience, our, you know, we've formed a nice group of Dharma jewels, you know, thanks to everybody. So Eva will probably send out a little email to those who are on the email list to say whatever it is we want to say. We did discuss second weekend, it'll be the second weekend, and yeah, second weekend of each month, starting February, because we're still hoping to have the end of year Vajrasattva retreat, 5 days, and then the lam-rim retreat, which are also part of the commitments for this course. So if you know about that, send an email as well. Okay. No, there's no prerequisites for the Vajrasattva retreat. So we familiarize with the practice of Vajrasattva as a daily purification practice, but we do it, you know, in a retreat setting. It's between Christmas and New Year, like starts Boxing Day, ends the day before New Year's, just in case anyone gets to come together and celebrate anywhere. You only have a Dorje bell if you have an empowerment. So no, those who have know that it's a commitment, and those who don't have don't know, so don't bring. Okay, but you do need a mala because you've got a cap. Okay, dedicate. May the precious Supreme Bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. And we'll just recite the long life prayers for our precious lamas and then done. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. And for Kyabje Zopa Rinpoche, you who uphold the subdual's moral way, who serves as a bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers, honoring the three sublime ones, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. And if you could please hold Gareth Brybag in your prayers for the next 47 days. Anyway, hopefully it'll go off to FPMT now. It was having a little obstacle on my phone. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.